It's been 13 years since Jamie Matson saw her father, and finally, when she saw him, he lay in a casket, lifeless, covered in a white silk kimono, in the country where she had spent the first 13 years of her life, Japan. Her father was murdered, brutally slit open by a sword. Not only was he killed, but also his house had been burgled. Now let's ask the most important questions in a crime fiction. Who was Bernard Matson? Why was he killed? Who killed him? Why was his house burgled? Before we move into the review, I am Shalet Jimmy. I love books and I talk about them here. I am an avid crime fiction reader and a lover of classics, hence they predominantly constitute my read and to be read list. But I assure you, I have other genres too. Welcome to Shalet Jimmy's Story World. Bernard Matson, her father, was a top American diplomat who had fallen in love with Japan, its customs, its culture. He was also an expert in them. Above all, he had dedicated his entire life to the Japanese-American relations. Though the father-daughter duo shared a wonderful camaraderie, they had to part ways because Jamie's mother got separated from her father. And unfortunately, it was her father's death that brought back the estranged daughter from New York to Japan after so many years. And Jamie needed answers. Despite her mother's coaxing to return to New York, she decided to stay. No doubt, her decision invited a lot of hardships and consequences for her to suffer. The mystery begins when a medical examiner procures a flash drive and Japanese woodblock print on a man's body who was cut open with a single stroke of a sword. Woodblock prints are a technique used to print texts, images, or patterns used widely throughout East Asia. It was originated in China. So, around the edges of the print that was found on the man's body, there were some post-it notes and pencil sketches describing the details of the prints in English. Initially, it did not mean much to the detectives who were investigating the man's murder, but they realized soon that they could put two and two together only if they found out who killed Bernard Matson, as he was the only man who could give meaning to the woodblocks found on the man's body. Hiroshi, the detective, Sakaguchi, Tokyo's head of homicide, and their team started investigating the murder. Soon, Jamie, Matson's daughter, Hiroshi and their team found out that Matson was killed for a valuable piece of information he had discovered in the National Archives while researching for his autobiography. Not only was his book manuscript missing, but also a speech which he was about to deliver in an international forum. What was the speech all about? No doubt there might be inflammable information in it because delegates from all the countries in Asia, Europe, and North America was about to assemble in that forum. Hiroshi also knew that Jamie's life would be in danger, as the assailants of her father would assume that Jamie might have all the information they needed. So he started protecting her. And while doing so, they developed some sort of emotions for each other. Could it be called love? I don't know. It's deeper, that I know. Okay, so Bernard Matson had left behind a tangled web of relations. And going through that tangled web makes The Moving Blade a gripping and fast-paced police procedural crime thriller. The Moving Blade is the second book in the Hiroshi series, the first one being The Last Train, which garnered a lot of rave reviews from the readers. The book I have is a review copy with the author's signature on it, and it felt really exciting. Now I would like to share my experience and also some of the major happenings that preceded before I finally got to read this book. So I was on cloud nine literally when I got a book from a faraway land, Japan. Of course, I had received books from the United States, Canada, and also from different states in my country, but never Japan. Besides, I'd never read a book based in Japan, so it was really exciting. But I could not revel in it as much as I needed. For just a few days after I received the copy, Kerala, my homeland in India, had to face the greatest floods the country had ever faced in a century. There was water everywhere. Kerala was famous for its greenery, climate. Everything was submerged in water. And finally, when we were getting our lives back together, we had to face another flood next year in the same month. 2020 was an exemption. We didn't have to face anything but the pandemic with the whole world. In 2021, floods did make a comeback, but with lesser ramifications than the previous one. So in between, I tried to read this book, but I could not focus clearly because the backdrop was different, the names of the characters, places, everything was different, and after reading a few pages, I couldn't make out who was who and which places they were referring to earlier, etc. And in between, one of my roommates, I had 3 roommates, and one of my roommates, Shruti, she took this book away to her place to read once the first lockdown was announced. But we never got back. The pandemic uprooted us and left us in different districts of the state. And finally, I got this book just a month ago. So I owe a big apology to the author for not reviewing the book. For delaying the review. So a big sorry. And regarding the book, it was worth the wait. I just loved it. I just have to say I just loved it. I'm saying it not because I delayed the review. Genuinely, I loved it. Michael Pronko's writing reminded me of crime fiction writer P.D. James's words. She said, "Words are the raw materials of our craft. The greater the vocabulary, the more effective is your writing." Michael Pronko, the author, has a way with words. His writings are just like honey dripping from a comb. What could you expect from a man who has lived, taught American literature, I believe, and written about Tokyo for very many years? The setting was unique with a well-developed plot. There was emotions, intrigue, and eloquent detailing on Japanese culture, customs, and especially food. But this meticulous detailing had not lessened the pace of the book one bit, and that makes it an exciting read. What I love about the characters, the main characters, Jamie and Hiroshi, was that they were perfectly human with all the vulnerabilities, and that made them look real. I certainly would like to read the author's other books. He has also written columns, essays, and won numerous awards. So I recommend The Moving Blade by Michael Pronko. If you like my review, please share, like, comment, and subscribe. God bless.